Apart from depression, what makes me talk passionately about anxiety is this label called OCD. If you're struggling with anxiety, I bet you have come across the word OCD. OCD in full is obsessive compulsive disorder, and anyone who is struggling with anxiety, anyone who has struggled with anxiety has struggled with some level of OCD. So in this particular video, I want to talk about OCD, how it manifested for me, how it started for me, and what you can be able to do to overcome OCD, what you can be able to do to stop performing compulsions. So let's get it started. When I started this video, you had me talk about this label called OCD, and I call it a label because OCD is an offset of anxiety. Like, it's not that I don't like to label anxiety disorders like someone is struggling with health anxiety, OCD, social anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder. You may hear me using these labels, or doctors out there may use these labels so that they can help in categorizing you. Okay, you're struggling with intrusive thoughts, you have health anxiety, you have social anxiety, you have GAD, but all those labels are an offset of anxiety. You have one problem, and that problem is anxiety. You don't have, I don't know now, because if you say now I have OCD, because me, when I went to the hospital, I was diagnosed with OCD. I had different labels. I had OCD, I had health anxiety, I had GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, I had social anxiety, I had agoraphobia. But come to think of it right now, the doctor would have just written that I have anxiety because that's all I had. They use these labels in order to know, like, where do you specifically belong? Do you struggle with panic attacks? So okay, you have panic attacks. Are you panicking all the time? Are you having general anxiety? Like, just to categorize you that this is what you have. But labels are self-defeating. What you have one problem, and that problem is anxiety. So in this video, when I'm talking about OCD, just know that I want you to understand what is happening specifically when you are performing compulsions, when you're having the weird thoughts, when you're having the scary thoughts, when you're having the intrusive thoughts, when you're performing rituals. I want you to know exactly what is happening so that you can stop performing the ritual, that you can stop having the obsessive thoughts. But it's not like now you are struggling with OCD is a different entity from anxiety. No, it's an offset of anxiety, and you place it under the anxiety umbrella. As I've said, OCD in full is obsessive compulsive disorder, and it is a scenario whereby you are having this compulsive repetitive thoughts, and these thoughts come with an urge. Like, you're having these thoughts and they come with an urge that you need to perform this action. And OCD, I can describe it as anything you do to try and alleviate anxiety, anything you do to try and stop anxiety, anything you do to try and find relief from anxiety. That's what we call OCD. OCD manifested for me in form of, I had these repetitive thoughts that came with an urge. I had this urge, like it came with an urge of doing these thoughts, otherwise something bad will happen. And OCD is something that will latch on the worst case scenarios. If you love your partner, that's what OCD is going to latch on. If you care about your career, if you care about your kids, if you care about your relationship, that's what OCD latches on. And those are the kind of thoughts that you're gonna have. For example, me, I had thoughts about my academic certificates. Everything was just like, most of the time I had thoughts that you need to check your academic certificates, and I used to check and I used to check and I used to check. Like, I was doing this because I had these thoughts were repetitive, and I was compelled to do them. I felt like if I don't do them, something bad's gonna happen. And also, when I was following these thoughts, I had some relief from anxiety, and that relief only lasts for a short time. It won't lead to long-term freedom. In fact, compulsions keep you in the anxiety cycle, because when you are performing compulsions, you are sending a signal to the brain. You are showing your brain that there is a threat. That's why you are performing. Like, that's one of the surest ways to show your brain that there is a threat, by performing the compulsion. Compulsions that can be anything. Most of the time I used to check my academic certificates, switching on and off the lights, checking if you have placed things in a correct manner. Some people wash their hands. I've had a client who before, they used to wash their hands up to a point where their hands were bleeding. That just shows you how extreme OCD can go. With OCD, if you perform these compulsions, those thoughts are gonna come. You have no control over those thoughts. We call those thoughts the first fear. You have no control over those thoughts. You have no control over the physical symptoms that you have. You have no control over the feelings of unreality, over the panic attacks, over the weird sensations. So even with these thoughts, you have no control over these thoughts, but you have the control in what you do with these thoughts. If you are following these thoughts, now that thought just comes that you have not closed the door. You can go and check once. You have not closed the gas. You can go and check once, but repetitively checking, repetitively arranging things in a particular manner, repetitively washing your hands, that's a wrong signal that you're sending to the brain. That's a wrong message that you're sending to the brain. You're showing the brain that there's danger, that there is a real threat. That's why you are performing these compulsions. I've always said, for you to be able to overcome anxiety, for you you to be able to overcome OCD, you need to live your life as if you don't have these symptoms. You need to live your life as someone who is already healed. That one, you're showing the brain that there is no threat. That's why you're living your life the way you're doing. You're not performing compulsions. The first step to OCD recovery, the first step to recover from anxiety is not performing the compulsions. Compulsions keep you in the cycle, and compulsions can be anything. Like you are seeking reassurance, you're asking someone, do you have this symptom? Do you have this symptom? Have you ever experienced? That's a form of compulsion. Asking ChatGPT, asking Google, going to the hospital. It depends on what anxiety you're struggling with. If it's health anxiety, you keep on going to the hospital. Any change in your body, you're just like, okay, what am I experiencing? Is it this? Is it this? So you end up visiting the hospitals numerous times. That's health anxiety. Social anxiety, you can't be at places, or when you're at these places, you are distracting yourself using a phone. You want to attend social events when you're drunk, you want to smoke. Those are all forms of compulsions. When it started, I told you compulsion is anything that you do to try and find relief from anxiety, to try and alleviate anxiety. So at this point, I want you to ask yourself, because I know you have performed a compulsion. What is it that you do to try and find relief from anxiety? Even some people even use exercise as a form of compulsion. You're doing exercise to try and feel better, and that one won't work with anxiety. Anything that you're doing to try and find relief, that's a wrong signal you're sending to the brain. You're sending the brain that really there's a threat, and therefore it will continue pumping more adrenaline, more cortisol in your body. And the consequence of these stress hormones is more of the intrusive thoughts that you don't want, more of the physical symptoms, more of the panic attacks, more of the feelings of unreality. So at this point, what compulsions have you taken part in? I want you to comment down in the comment section. And to add on it, not everyone experiences the same thought as someone else. The compulsion that someone is doing is not the same compulsion that you're going to do, because maybe someone is struggling with health anxiety. They are very sensitive of any change in their body. Maybe you are struggling, you really love your partner, and the thoughts are coming that what if your partner is cheating on you? What if your partner doesn't love you? So you perform a compulsion towards the thought that you have. Now you start checking your partner's phone, now you start following him everywhere, you start stalking him. So everyone will have different thoughts, and the compulsions that you're going to perform, if you perform compulsions, are not going to be the same as someone else's. Everyone is different. Compulsions are not only physical. Compulsions can be mental. There are physical compulsions, which dominated me most of the time. It's not only checking, it's not only switching on and off the lights, it's not only arranging things in a particular manner, it's not only Googling, it's not only seeking reassurance. Compulsions can be mental. You have this thought, but you want to solve it, you want to argue with it, you want to make it right. Compulsions can be mental. It's not only physical. Compulsions can also be mental. You worry about a specific thought, you want to argue with it, you want to solve it, you want to make it right. Those are all forms of mental compulsions. But here's the secret to overcome both physical and mental compulsions. There is no way around it. I'm not going to reveal something that is not known. The way to overcome OCD is to stop performing the compulsions. Stop performing the rituals. These rituals are the ones keeping the cycle going. These rituals are the one keeping the anxiety alive, because when you follow these negative thoughts, when you follow these thoughts, when you do what your brain suggests that to do, that is the surest way to fuel the anxiety and OCD cycle. You stop them at the compulsions. Actually, when I started recovering from anxiety, compulsions were the first symptoms for me to overcome. Like when I stopped performing the compulsion, of course the thoughts are still gonna be there, but when you stop it at the action, the thoughts also will diminish, because you're not putting it into action. You're just having the thoughts, they're just in the background, you're not doing anything about them. But if you give these thoughts attention, if you do what your brain suggests, that's the way to keep the OCD cycle alive. Because with anxiety, what you focus on grows. So the action, when you take the action, that's how to keep the OCD cycle alive. Stop performing the compulsions. That's the way to overcome OCD. And as you do this, also the thoughts will fade away. And it is very possible to overcome this compulsion. At first, it's going to be hard, but it's not impossible. You can overcome the compulsions. Even me, at first, I thought that, is it gonna happen? But because for me, OCD was a struggle for me. Apart from depression, I started this video by saying, apart from depression, OCD is what makes me talk about, do what I do. Because the way OCD, the way it affected my life, when I was struggling with anxiety, I must talk about it. And the thing is, you can't white knuckle around it. You have to go through it. You're gonna feel the urges. The urge is gonna come, you need to do this, you need to do this, but don't give in to the urge. Don't give in to those thoughts. Let them just be in the background. If they want to stick, let them stick. They're gonna be repetitive, but don't follow those thoughts. Do the opposite of what your anxiety wants you to do. Stop them at the compulsions. When you stop performing the rituals, when you stop performing the compulsions, that's the way you overcome OCD. If you have watched this video up to this point, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you have anything that you would like me to talk about in the next video, comment down below. Otherwise, bye.